Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Barbara Winter. I'm the chair of Southeast Oakland Democratic Club. But I want to thank the club for hosting tonight's event. I want to thank all candidates except one, Anya Bartmettler. She is running as well, but unfortunately she had a business trip scheduled 3 months in advance. So she would like to apologize for not coming, otherwise she would be here. This is a candidate forum for the local election on November 7th for council and Hazel Park City Council and Hazel Park Mayor. The format of the event will be we will give all the candidates up to 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Then will be a question portion from the audience, which I want to thank you for. I want to thank people who emailed their questions in advance. And then at the end, there will be 1 minute statement, closing statement for each candidate. I would like to introduce to you mayoral candidate Mike Webb. He's running unopposed, but he graciously agreed to come and answer questions as well. Thank you. Hi, Mike. Thank you. Amy Aubrey, who is running for City Council. Charles Gladeau, who is running for City Council. Mr. Steve Gorsline, who is running. Bethany Holland, who is currently on a council. She was appointed. Councilperson Andy Lacuro, who is also running for his re-election. Yeah, I know, I trained. I was practicing. And last but not least, Alyssa Sullivan, who is running for the City Council as well. Richard Robbins will be our timer, so I will nicely ask you guys, whenever you see the stop sign, please wrap up. We're not going to cut you halfway or anything, but when you see can you show them the stop sign? Can you see it? See it. Okay, I think we all agree we don't want to be here all night. Let's start. So for the opening segment, I would like Mike Webb to say up to 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm currently on City Council as your Mayor Pro Tem. I feel privileged to be able to move on and serve as your mayor. And I just want to let you know I have a auto repair shop in town. I've been in business for the last 10 years. Been on City Council for the last 16 years. And I've served with a lot of great people up here. And there's a couple in the audience here, former Mayor Jan Parisi and Mayor Jack Lloyd over there as well, and I want to give them some recognition here for the obligation and hard work they did when they were up here. This is not a very easy job. Sometimes it has a lot of challenges, and I would feel grateful to be your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Ms. Aubrey.
All right. Hi. First, I wanted to thank the Southeast Oakland Democratic Club for hosting this event tonight, giving us this opportunity. My name is Amy Aubrey. I'm running for Hazel Park City Council. A little bit about myself. I have a background. I have degrees in political science as well as public administration. I currently work city-level government for the city of Detroit. I'm running for City Council because I believe that my work experience and my education would be a great asset to the city to bring in some new ideas and a different perspective. Some of the things I want to focus on some tree issues in our city, open spaces, some economic development issues, as well as code enforcement.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Gladeau.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a 22-year resident of the city of Hazel Park. I'm currently serving on the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Historical Commission, and the Tax Review Board. My education background was, my college was majoring in architecture with a minor in mathematics, and my current business background is retail management. I'm a territory manager for a company called Advantage Sales and Marketing, and before that, some of you probably remember me from a store here in Hazel Park for 10 years. Some of the things I like to focus on in my campaign is increasing the efficiency and the effectiveness of the code and building department, as well as making sure we continue going forward with the good progress we've made in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cloutier. Mr. Gorsline?
Good evening. Thank you guys for coming out. I just wanted to say I've lived in Hazel Park for 15 years, and so most of the changes that have occurred in Hazel Park have actually happened within the last 15 years. The one major change that I would really like to see is on zoning and code enforcement. And the reason I would really like to see that come into play, I live on a street where I have seen so many, I mean, my street is almost a perfect example of things gone wrong with ordinances, people putting roofs on, no permits, people ripping out hot tubs and tearing down fences, no permits, people making all kinds of changes to their property without any kind of changes. Biggest problem I see with code enforcement is a lot of this is done on Sundays when there's no code enforcement people out there. And so that would be something I would want to see is more code enforcement. And I think that is one of the reasons people move away from Hazel Park is because the decline in their property. People get tired of working on their property and only to see it lose value because somebody else is tearing theirs up. My background, I actually come from Homeland Security, so it's going to be kind of a different switch.
Thank you, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Gorsline. Ms. Holland?
Thank you all for caring enough about Hazel Park to come out here tonight and listen to us yak. I hope that after this is done, we have a chance to talk to you all in person and answer any questions directly. I'm a 10-year resident. As you guys know, I was appointed to council in January after Mayor Parisi was stepped down for health reasons. And in the past 10 months, I have grown to appreciate the years that the previous administration have put in and what they have fought for to get us to where we are right now. For the first time in a long time, we're able to sit and think about and we're able to dream big and things that we want to do and things we want to bring to the community instead of how are we going to pay for that copper fireman. First time in a long time, and that's thanks mainly because of all of you supporting all of the public millages. They suck, but they've kept us out of receivership, and the fact that we are able to be here right now, have this discussion, talk to you without somebody from Lansing sitting in the back overseeing it, I thank you all so much. Look forward to tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. Mr. LaCura?
Thank you, Barbara. I want to thank the Southeast Oakland Democratic Club for having us out and everybody for coming out. I'm Andy LaCuro. I've been serving on the City Council since 2001. Mike and I were elected at the same time. And I didn't plan, when I moved into Hazel Park, I didn't plan on running for City Council, but I saw the challenges and the way the money was being spent. And I got involved and we got elected, and with the administration, with the voters, and with the council working together, we kept ourselves out of receivership to a point now where home values are up, job creation for the companies coming in on, Amazon and LG, and it's nice to have a Secretary of State's office in our city. It's unusual to have the state putting money into the city. Usually they take it out. But I just want to continue the progress we're having. It's been wonderful to see the restaurants, the microbrewery, the arts fair. I've been involved in the Arts Council and volunteer on the art fair, but it was nice to have ours here because I've traveled to the other cities around to have art fairs, and I just look forward to serving with a number of new council members if you will honor me with your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaCura. Ms. Sullivan?
Good evening. Thank you, Southeast Oakland Dems, for hosting this. Thank you for all of these faces in the audience. It's lovely to see you all here. Bear with me, I'm sick, so my voice is kind of coming and going. I am an 18-year resident here in Hazel Park, 3 as a renter and 15 as a homeowner. I moved here in my early 20s because it resembled my hometown of Berkeley. It's a safe community. It's a very friendly community, and I really appreciate that about our neighborhoods. Since being in the city, I've been able to kind of get more involved in my experience here. I currently sit on the Planning Commission as well as the Arts Council, and was a co-chair for the art fair this year, which came as a wonderful success. It's really nice to have those things in our city, and I hope to continue doing initiatives like that in our city, bring things here that that our residents can enjoy, that are no cost, low cost. Amy and I, earlier this year, hosted an initiative in cooperation with the Growers and Makers Market, where we bring children's art, free children's art projects on Sundays to the Green Acres Park. And that's for residents, for non-residents. And I just hope to be able to continue moving towards things like that, new experiences, interactive experiences, and really, you know, kind of turn the tide on the positive change that's happening here and keep it moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Now we're going to move to the question portion. I just want to say that for the time saver, we got amazing questions. Thank you very much. Some are pertain to the same issue, so I'm going to categorize them. And if I don't read your question, I am very sorry. But I would encourage you to contact the candidates directly. Their addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers are on the Oakland County Clerk's website. This is how we were able to contact them. So the questions will be mostly 1 minute. If there is a more complicated question, we can give 2 minutes, but this is the format. Thank you very much one more time. The questions are really impressive. So let's start. We got a lot of questions about blight and code enforcement. So I'm going to, and we are going to rotate the order how the questions are asked. We are going to start with Mike Webb, and then the next question we will start with Ms. Aubrey. So the first question comes. What are your plans to address the blight in Hazel Park, either through code enforcement or changes in city ordinance, specifically in standardized enforcement, not just cherry picking? So 1 minute, Mr. Webb.
Okay. In the past, we had to cut back on some of our resources to get through our financial difficulties. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've really made some strides to add more people and change the way we actually perform our code enforcement. There's been some challenges in that area. There always will be, but it's how we are trying to get enough money to sustain a more equitable code enforcement, and that's what we're trying to do at this point. We've actually implemented a new person to overcharge of it all, and they've been making major changes in the last couple of months. But I think that there's got to be a lot to do, and it's going to take a little more time. But as far as making a difference, enforcing more on the weekends, that's kind of where we're headed. We're trying to actually make it where your neighbor doesn't have such a blighted home next to the guy that just wants to put a whole bunch of new brick on his house too, you know. But you want to make it much better.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Aubrey.
Okay, so one of my proposals for code enforcement, I've been calling compassionate code enforcement. I think we can use our code enforcement officers to help identify maybe patterns in the city. If we have a repeat offender, we need to identify maybe this is somebody that needs additional services, not just a ticket to tell them that they need to do some home repairs or some lawn maintenance. Maybe this is somebody that needs assistance from social services to help prevent these issues instead of constantly taking it after it becomes an issue. And we should also look and determine, is this renters or are they homeowners? Because depending on what the tickets are being issued for code enforcement, maybe this is something we need to go after landlords or slumlords and make sure that we can address it through other departments in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Gladue.
This is one of the big things I'm running on right now is the blight and code enforcement in the city. I think the best thing we could do is, which we've already started, is standardizing the codes and how we enforce the code. I think we need more code officers and more people working in the building department to help in that end. And I also think they need to be trained better. I think training is the key, so they know what to look for, not so much as know what to look for to write more tickets, but know where to offer help for some of these citizens that just seem to have a problem continually with their properties.
Thank you. Mr. Gorslein?
Real quickly, I think I can address it in about 30 seconds. One of the things that I noticed on my street, these are trucks. These are all trucks on my street. I took in 2 weeks. At the end of my street is a nice big sign that says, "No trucks." I think part of the code problem is that the people that are not obeying the law know that there's nobody that's going to pursue stopping them. And so when I see 15, 20 trucks on my street, I know the drivers can read, and there really isn't anything to read. It's a truck that has a line through it. It's an international sign that says "stay out." I think what happens is the drivers have for so long gotten away with it that they just do it. And I think that's the biggest problem with code enforcement, is actually starting it.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Holland?
Thank you. Cherry picking, we call it low-hanging fruit. Code enforcement has been inconsistent. It's been haphazard, and it's not been effective. A big part of that is the lack of a full-time department head whose only job, or her only job, is code and building enforcement. They have multiple jobs, and they're just overwhelming. So I feel that, first off, we need to have a department head whose sole job is to oversee these, and second, training. There is zero training, or at least in my understanding, there has been no training in customer service and understanding of ordinances, in knowing if you have a person with a need, which department and county do you put them in touch with so they can get assistance. So department head and training. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaCura.
Thank you. This has been a big problem because of the budget, repeatedly over the years for the budget. We have continually tore down houses that are in dilapidated condition, but it's always a moving target. Homes are becoming in disrepair over the years. It's 16 years being up here, and we've torn down plenty. I'm sure that if you were on the receiving end of the tickets, you wouldn't feel that we're not effective. But we do need to focus on it. And we have also, because of the declining property values, became a target for the many, many landlords and property owners who aren't there on site, that aren't watching over the property they own. And that's one of the areas I'd like to see we go after more. But it's, again, becomes down to budget. I would rather have a police officer going after, the domestic violence case than a truck on the road. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you very much. Definitely one of the issues that I see as a resident is lack of code enforcement in areas that I see needing it. Part of what I have discussed with officials here in the city is the accessibility of people to report issues they see. They're not sure how to contact their government. They're not sure how to get a hold of people to report issues that they're having problems with. I do know that the website is being updated through City Hall to have a tab where people can go and report issues that they see, and then that will get filtered through the city to the correct departments. I think that accessible information is really important in our city. Another issue, I would like to work on more roundtable issues with community organizations to really address places where we see lacking services so that we can fill in with volunteers. It's been very successful in other cities around the state, especially low-income cities where they don't have a lot of extra overhead to do extra staffing. So,
Thank you very much. This round, we're going to start with Ms. Aubrey. What is your plan to attract more businesses like Mabel Gray, Joe Bar, and Sellerman's to the John R. corridor?
One of the easiest ways to do that is through good placemaking. It's been studied extensively that if you have a welcoming environment, if you have tree-lined streets, it increases business. Approximately, I think I wrote this down, 17%. You'll see 17% increase in home values just by bringing in quality spaces with parks and tree-lined streets. That's what businesses want. They want to see that infrastructure. They want to be located near parks so that their employees can go have lunch outside. So not everybody's in, the corporate lunchroom. And by making our main corridors, so down 9 Mile as well as John R. more inviting for businesses, it's been proven that that would be a way to attract them. We also need to address our tax issues. We are at the 5th highest millage rate in the state of Michigan. And while we do have lower property values, that is still a deterrent to businesses, so we definitely need to address that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Ms. Gledew? Mr. Gledew.
I think the best way to attract new businesses is we've got a good start, keep it going. I think the blight issue along John R. with the empty buildings needs to be addressed. I think once those are addressed, you're going to bring in more businesses. Also, last year I attended the Congress of New Urbanism planning session that they held in the city, and they have some terrific ideas I'd like to see implemented. One of them, which I was right up the bat, was saving the historic properties along John R., or what few historic properties we have left. There was a study shown or done by one of the groups, and I can't think of the name of it right now, that showed the millennials especially, which should be aiming these changes at, really appreciate a good historic downtown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gosline.
Well, one of the things that I would like to see done that would probably attract more businesses is creating business areas. And right now we have businesses that are sporadically located. I looked at a website last night that has where 42 properties in Hazel Park are commercial properties, and they're all scattered away from each other. I'd like to see more companies together.
Consolidation. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Holland.
Thank you. Joe Bar, Mabel Gray, and Sellerman's are the best advertising we have for getting more additional new businesses with that vibe. People want to be around the energy. They are bringing them in. One of the things we as a community need to do is I believe Mr. Gledew addressed the Congress for New Urbanism and the John R. revitalization, starting with repaving it top to bottom. A lot of the vacant businesses, they need some work, and as we've discussed medical marijuana, and this is a new industry that will be coming to Hazel Park, the design standards that are going to be required for those businesses should be the starting point for other businesses to improve their facades and create a walkable, interesting, dynamic John R. corridor. And from there, we spread out to the rest of our business district. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lacuro.
Well, attracting the businesses is part of what we call placemaking, and we learned that through the Michigan Municipal League and other areas. We are also, Hazel Park is a redevelopment-ready community, and that's helped streamline the process of businesses coming here, and we walk them through that process rather than being deterrent and a roadblock. Arts are another thing that helps bring development. Art gardens, the murals, more things like that. And I'd like to see more, I'd like to see the bike lane finished from on Woodward Heights from Ferndale down to DeQuinder.
Just jump to the next question.
Oh, sorry. Bicycling is also an economic development. You know, people would come around and to the new restaurants and more traffic. It all works together, along with the arts and attracting people.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you very much. As a member of the Planning Commission, one of the ideals that we're speaking about right now is a road diet, where we would slow down the John R. corridor, possibly put some on-street parking, and again, in cooperation with bike lanes and placemaking, like the other candidates have discussed. These are all active ways to really encourage new businesses to come, to make our city attractive to new businesses, and then encourage businesses to stay. It also benefits people that have businesses here. There are in economic development, there are things called pockets where you have groupings of similar businesses near one another that also really goes on trend with providing a good clientele base to help these businesses be successful once they choose our city.
Thank you very much. So Mr. Lacuro jumped to a question, so I moved it forward. So Mr. Gladue, the next question, we
Did I
start
get
with...
to answer that question too?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, sorry, Mom.
Mr. Wow, thank you.
I just wanted to bring this up. We are the new, cool, hip place to be. Everybody wants to be here. Everybody's knocking on our doors. We have an opportunity. We've been trying to guide this opportunity. The medical marijuana issue is just a part of it. Other developers are looking at us for other reasons as well. As you've seen with the new Commerce Center at 10 Mile, 300 to 400 jobs are coming out of that whole industry. It all started with that phrase, new, cool, hip place to be, because we marketed that phrase in different magazines twice, and it took off the second time, and that's when we got Mabel Gray. That was the initial hit for us to take off and get the advertisement, the notoriety, and things are starting to progress. We are the only financially, for developers and investors to come to our town, that's why we are here now. They're coming here because we're the last spot in Oakland County that has the room, that has an urban feel, that's 10 minutes from downtown Detroit, 10 minutes from north. Either way, east, west, 5-10 minutes, you go anywhere you want. I just wanted to make sure that we can continue that progression with all whoever gets elected, our former colleagues, they were all with this transition for the future, and we had an opportunity after the recession hit, and that's where we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry.
Sorry, I went over a little bit. But I just wanted to get
Perfectly fine, sir. So now the third question, we're going to start with Mr. Gladue. What do you think about implementing bike lanes in the city?
I'm in favor of implementing the bike lanes along Woodward Heights. I think we need to finish that connection between Ferndale and Warren. I'm not really in favor of them along John R. I think if we go with the road diet, as mentioned earlier, and get the speeds down to 25 miles an hour, most cities that have that situation don't have bike lanes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gorslein?
But one of the problems with putting bike lanes in on John R. is
You can move the microphone closer to yourself. You don't have to.
the streetlights have been built a foot to 2 feet away from the road, and it's we probably have a light get knocked down every year because the lights they're right up against the street. So to add bike lanes, we'd actually have to move most of those lights in order to get the street where you have lanes that cut in and out. To actually put bike lanes in, because next thing you have somebody weaving out of a bike lane into a lane of traffic. So John R. would have to be redone.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Holland?
Yes. Yes, we need bike lanes. Woodward Heights is the logical first one to connect it with Ferndale and to one of our largest parks in our rec center and figure out ways to connect it throughout the city. I'd also like to see the speed limits reduced a little bit. We need additional crosswalks, really, really well lit and well marked, like train station crossings over them on John R. The road diet, it's a cute way of saying instead of 2 lanes each direction, you have 1 lane each direction with a center turn lane, and the side could either be for off-street parking or the parking along the side or bike lanes. If the speed is reduced to 25 miles an hour, we are not required to have dedicated bike lanes, but really with the volume of traffic there, we should look into some kind of a traffic study, but immediately Woodward Heights, as we're resurfacing that, should have bike lanes implemented.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lacuro?
I am certainly for bike lanes, and the logical step would be to connect along Woodward Heights first. I question them a little along 9 Mile unless we really had a road diet, because John R. Ferndale's bringing them out on 9 Mile out that way. But it just reminds me of a bike lane that I see on Northwestern Highway. I can't believe somebody would ride their bike on a 55-mile mile-per-hour path. You're not protected by that white line or even protected by the green paint stripes, you know, so Woodward Heights is a logical first place. But I was driving up out of Detroit yesterday, and I was astounded to see on Cass Avenue all the brand-new bike lane put up, and they had real risers. I don't know what they were made out of that actually kept vehicles would hit this 3-foot piece out of in the ground before they would get into your bike lane.
Thank you very much.
Forum.
Also, Ms. Sullivan?
I am also a proponent of bike lanes here in the city of Hazel Park. I was looking forward to when Ferndale had put theirs in, that continuation of the bike traffic. We have a lot in common with our neighboring city, and it would be nice to continue that flow and encourage people to travel via bike safely in our city, along with the road diet. I think that making our city more walkable, more green, more eco-friendly is a really progressive way to address the issues that we're facing and to continue moving forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webb?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I agree with bike lanes in certain areas. There's sometimes it makes a great deal of sense, like Woodward Heights, where it's more residential as well. And down where in the south end of John R., where we're getting ready to repave or resurface that road, we're also going to fix the north and east 9 Mile and the north part of John R. with all the concrete as well. But on the south end, I'm familiar with it, and I've seen it even on Woodward Heights, where we're destroying our curves, destroying our sewers. We're having to replace them all the time. And if we go to a road diet with a turn lane, 2 lanes, and some bike lanes, I think it'd be advantageous for us to be able to do that. And also, it has a dual purpose, gives people an opportunity to move around town a little easier. You know, we have a younger generation that wants to ride their bikes. My kids ride their bikes all the time, and I think it's going to be help more sociably add to the walkability of the community as well.
Thank you very much. Ms. Aubrey?
I 100% support bike lanes. I actually studied bicycle infrastructure while I was getting one of my degrees. They currently have bike lanes that run through Oak Park, through to Ferndale. I think it would be fantastic to see those bike lanes continue into Hazel Park. It would definitely be a way to encourage more people to come to our city and frequent our businesses. It's really easy to build safe bicycle infrastructure. You can do a protected bike lane. It keeps you physically separated from traffic. By having safer lanes like that, it increases the number of people that will use those lanes. So I've been known to bike year-round, so it's definitely important to have safe bike lanes year-round and to make sure that it's something, right now when you don't have protected bike lanes, you have delivery vehicles and other people that don't understand what a bicycle lane is, and they will park in that lane or they will use that lane for traffic. So by making safe bicycle infrastructure, it would be a huge asset to our city.
Thank you very much. The next question is all, again, combination of questions from multiple audience members. What are, and we're going to start with Mr. Gerslein. What are your issue regarding nepotism and cronyism in government? Do you feel it is a violation of ethics and abuse of power?
Yes.
Thank you. No. Thank you.
I think the question it comes into is how do you enforce it and where do you draw the line, because 2 different people will simultaneously disagree on where that boundary is. But I know, having worked for the federal government for 30 years, it's very much enforced, and the nepotism issue is it doesn't happen because it at the personnel level it is stopped.
So let me maybe follow up. So do you believe there is an issue in Hazel Park with?
There is an issue with it, and I think part of it is because we have a very small workforce, and so the perception is probably that it happens more than it does.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Holland?
Yes, obviously, that is, it's unethical. Does it happen? Yep. What do we do about it? People should have their jobs because they're qualified to do the job. Whether it's a department head, whether it's a secretary, whether it's a guy pushing a broom, whoever it is, they should be qualified for that job. And if they're not able to do that job, they should not have that job.
And do you believe there's an issue in Hazel Park?
I think there's a perception there is. I can't speak to if there actually is, but there's some things that have concerned me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lacuro?
I'm not sure whether they're talking about nepotism of elected officials having family members in positions of employee of the
There
city,
was a
or
specification that a family member of city council person works in Ice Arena. I do not know if it is true or not.
well, I would recollect back to a time when a young woman was hired, but she was related to a senior administrative staff, but that person was hired by a board, okay? There was 5 members. The relative had nothing to do with the hiring, and that woman was the best candidate. She doesn't work with us any longer, but the Ice Arena is separate from the it's a general building authority building. It is separate from most other city things, but are they, the issue is, are they a management? Are they in a position of authority?
Thank you very much, Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you. I do believe that nepotism and cronyism are not only unethical, but they're dangerous. If you have a group of people that can come into power, they pretty much can do whatever they please instead of having any dissension or question of authority. That's a dangerous place to put a city. I do believe that there is a problem with that in Hazel Park. Like Mr. Gorsline said, addressing that at the entry level, transparency and hiring practices is a good way to kind of put a stop to that, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Webb.
Yes, I think that question is probably directed at my daughter. But anyways.
Does she work at the ice
She works at
arena?
I'm getting to, she works at the Ice Arena. She was hired as a part-time employee. And I get a legal opinion from that it is totally separate from the city. And that there's a separate board for the GBA, and they oversee everything going on for the GBA and the Ice Arena. And all we do as far as the budget goes, I have nothing to do with the actual day-to-day or nothing of that sort over that spot. And it actually, all we do is oversee the budget, at the finalization budget for the year, and whether or not the Ice Arena is actually making enough money to sustain itself. And my daughter bought a part-time job there, was asked to work there, because they could not find anybody to work there because it is a part-time job, and they're closed all summer long pretty much, and they lose a lot of employees back and forth. So she was starting out as a helper, and then they asked her to give her a little job in between college.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aubrey.
I'm not privy to personal matters in the city, but I know that there is a perception that this is definitely an issue. As I meet residents, they do bring that up, and I think one of the ways that it can easily be addressed is perhaps through an ethics ordinance. I previously was an administrator for an ethics board in Wayne County, so if anybody thought that there was an issue and perhaps they wanted to question the employment of Mike's daughter, they can submit that complaint. It would be reviewed by an independent body, and that's the easiest way to address these problems, is to tackle it through perhaps an ethics ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Ms. Gledu? Mr. Gledu. Oh my God, one more time. Get me out.
She'll get it right by the end of the night. I do think there is a perception of nepotism and cronyism in the city. I personally don't know of any instances where that is happening, but I think the perception has been out there and has been out there a very long time. I think wise decisions on who the city hires, I think maybe some more guidelines need to be put into place so we can relieve the citizens' fear that is happening. I think that would be our best course of action on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to stay with Ms. Holland. Question is, please describe your volunteer work for the city. Which is your favorite?
Volunteer work, historical museum, community Engagement Committee, which works with the schools. I help with Gleaners. I probably would have to say that my favorite, and sometimes least favorite, is with Animal Control. I'm there every weekend, and I'm waiting for my phone to ping now to let me know that we've had 3 adoptions tonight. And describe that. A lot of dog walking, a lot of scooping litters, a lot of picking up poo, a lot of mopping, a lot of laundry, and a lot of folding of clothes. But it's very rewarding to see the lost pets go home, and the ones that don't go home finding them homes, especially the seniors and the dogs that you wouldn't think we could find homes for. It's been very rewarding.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lacuro?
Well, in Hazel Park, it started here with the Hazel Park Youth Assistance Committee in 2001. I'm still serving on that. There was a time when we had the pension board. I was volunteering on that board. The soccer board is another position. The Arts Council, though, is, I would say, my favorite. The current mayor, Jeff Keaton, and I co-founded the Hazel Park Arts Council, which is what led to the Hazel Park Arts Fair and the Art Park and some of the murals in town. And I'd say that's my favorite.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you. In the past, in the city, I was involved with animal control recently after the previous animal control officer left, before we'd hired in Justin. Pardon me. Currently, I am on the Planning Commission, and I am a member of the Hazel Park Arts Council. I think probably my favorite thing was the Arts Council, being a co-chair of the art fair, working grassroots, going to art fairs, introducing ourselves to artists, and encouraging them to come visit our city, and just being able to brag about our city and then have people come here and experience what I experience. Additionally, I am known in the city as the resident animal girl, and I've helped many residents fix their fences to help keep their dogs in their yards. I've helped people transport their animals to the vet for vaccines so they could get licensing, and things like that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webb?
Thank you. I've been a volunteer for the Lions Club for many years. I've also been a Mason for many years, and I'm also now starting, along with some other members of the schools, we started up a coalition to help at-risk youth and try to face the addiction issues of heroin and other high-risk drugs and try to keep kids from turning to that degree. We're trying to implement social programs in the schools so they can actually have somewhere to turn besides going to a drug or an alcohol situation. Because a lot of kids do have family problems, and that's one of my biggest and newest things that I'm trying to really get involved with. But over the years with the Lions Club, we built wheelchair ramps. We've hosted the beer tent, of course, over there. We use that money to fund other programs throughout the year through the Lions Club, and also volunteer helping with those programs as well. Thank you.
Very much. Ms. Aubrey?
In my past, I volunteered with numerous organizations outside of the city doing homeless shelters as well as rabbit rescue. Within the city, I'm on the zoning board, and then the main organization I volunteer with directly here is the Hazel Park Arts Council. I was also co-chair with Alyssa for the Hazel Park Art Fair, where it basically became my unpaid part-time job, putting in 20-plus hours a week this entire year to make sure that we could offer the best fair that this community could have by bringing in some new innovative additions to the fair. I've also co-founded the free children's art on Sundays with the Hazel Park Growers and Makers Market. They were fantastic last year to allow us in. And so we wanted to make sure that parents had an opportunity to learn some great, easy, free arts and crafts to do with their children to really bring some great enrichment to the community. So I love doing that, meeting with the kids every Sunday, and I recommend, sorry, I'm going to plug it, but please visit the Hazel Park Growers and Makers Market Facebook as well as the Hazel Park Arts Council Facebook for the events that we do, because these are free events in the community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gladue?
Yeah, so there's several boards and commissions I had mentioned earlier that I'm on. My favorite, of course, would be the Historical Museum. I have probably 250 to 300 volunteer hours into setting that museum up. I'm very passionate about it, as anybody that will tell you that comes in, I will talk your ear off about everything in there. Also, next year I'll be taking over as chairman of the Lions Club Memorial Day festivities, meaning I will be in charge of the beer tent, so I'm also looking forward to that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Grossline?
Well, between Homeland Security and the Coast Guard, I don't have any free time, but I do volunteer a lot with veterans. I have put in quite a few hours with the, it's an organization called the Michigan Armed Forces Hospitality Center. It works as like, very similar to a USO out at the airport. They also work in Lansing, they also work in Troy. They basically, because since 9/11, families can no longer see their kids off to the military at the airport. Unless you have a ticket, you can't go past security checkpoint. So we operate a lounge for the families just before their kids leave for the military.
Thank you very much. And the next question, we're going to start with Mr. Lecuro. What is your opinion on the best way to eliminate our debt? I believe it's the city debt. Do we have a debt?
The city's not allowed to operate with a deficit. The debt, I would say, maybe that's referring to the unfunded liabilities, post-employment benefits, and the pensions, healthcare and pensions. The best way, I would think, is to have the state address the broken system of municipal finance. Sorry. I was the first to say it.
You win.
But really, I mean, seriously, we're in a situation, we used to have 120 employees, now we're down to 70 or 80, and what you're paying into the pension isn't the same, and you try and shut these things down. A solution is for the state, they have cut us since we've been here. We would have over $8 million in our budget, just what the state by law and statute, constitutional and law, owes us. We wouldn't have a financial problem if the state treated us properly.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sullivan?
Much like what Councilman Lecuro just said, our city is not running in a deficit, but I can tell you that some of the biggest profitable sources in the city are property taxes. So without reform to Prop A or Headley, we are kind of at a bit of a break point there. Continuing to support our police and fire departments, that absolutely brings money and revenue into the city, as well as seeking ways to make our assets work better for us, seeking ways to make our assets more profitable. The ice arena, the pardon me, the parks, the rec department, and things like that. And those are also things that come back in twofold, because we benefit from expansion of those departments as residents, and then we reap the benefits of them expanding by making more profits off of them.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webb?
It goes without saying, the municipal financing has been one of the key issues since 2000, actually before I was elected. This really started back in '98, whenever they should have really got a hold of Proposal A and Headley and changed some things back then, because it all started in 1994 when they put a temporary Band-Aid on it. But they never really faced the real issues of how it could free fall and hurt the small communities more so than the bigger communities, because they have a little more to have to raise more tax revenue. But our taxes are high, just as far as our millage rate goes, but I think we need to make some changes to those areas for the new businesses coming in, as well as the new homes that are being built, so they can better afford to be in them. And that way we can grow with more homes being built on some of the empty lots we have. I also like to see some changes for the future, if we can actually get our legislators together on one page, and no offense, Robbie, but state senators and representatives to actually talk about the issue. They're finally starting to make some headway, but they're not really wanting to bring the whole key issue in light. And I think if they just made some minor changes where it couldn't happen again if we were to go into another recession, and prevent us from getting to that point and protect the small communities. We are the urban areas of the state of Michigan. We need to be, we're the frontline people here. We need to be protected a little more, because the outlying areas, they got all the extra county money that we don't get.
Thank you very much. Ms. Aubrey?
pretty much everything I was going to bring up's been touched on. Like's been brought up, some of the ways to increase our revenues we unfortunately don't have control over, with Prop A and HUDley restricting our property taxes. That really affects the income we're able to collect in the city, as well as the reduced amount of revenue sharing that's coming from the state. Hopefully, it's great that Robert's here, and hopefully he'll take this message back. We would love to see those revenues return back to the cities. The things that we do have control over, if we can make some of those city assets that we have, find ways to make them run a little bit more efficient, save a little bit more money. We do still subsidize the ice arena, not as much as we have in years past, but if we can find better ways to cut that out, that's money that can go into other programs, as well as working with our community organizations, develop some partnerships to see other places that we can save money in the city, and obviously grant opportunities. Hopefully some new grant opportunities will come around that we can qualify for. Make sure we're diligent in applying for those opportunities to subsidize anything we can in the city.
Thank you very much. I wasn't to like state representative here, but I would love to welcome everyone. I would like to introduce everyone to Robert Wittenberg, who is a state representative for the area, and he joined us here tonight. Thank you very much. Mr. Glad, you would like me to repeat the question? Yes. Okay. So the question was, what is your opinion on the best way to eliminate our debt, meaning by city, I believe?
Well, as everybody has stated, the city is not running at a deficit. They cannot do that. I think some of the ways to raise money are additional fees collected through the building department by proper enforcement of the building codes and landlord's license. And until HUDley and Prop A are resolved, I think we're going to have a tough go at it. I think our legacy costs have to be very carefully looked at every year. I know those are hurting us, as well as the lack of revenue sharing from the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gorsline?
Well, since HUDley was passed back in 1978, I don't think any changes have been made, and I don't believe any changes are coming. I think the legislature is pretty much walked away from making any more changes to HUDley. So I think we need to move on and find other ways to raise money. And as I said, on my street, between trucks not being stopped because they're on a commercial, people putting roofs on with no permits, people tearing down garages without permits. I think of Troy, where I think it's in Troy, you need a permit to put in a doghouse. We need more ways to raise money than we have. And I'm not saying tax everything and put a fee on everything, but gosh, it seems like there's a whole lot of other towns that raise money other ways, and we have to cry for what little money we get. There's got to be another way to do it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Holland?
Thank you. We need to make good decisions on what we can control, because as Andy was the first to say it, I'm going to say it again, because this has been beat into all of our brains. The broken system of municipal finance. We cannot control that. Locally, our officials here can make good decisions, so we're not paying for the poor decisions that we are currently still paying for, as the ice arena being a good example. That finally is very close to being paid off and has the potential to be an asset in the community. However, that has hamstrung us in our budget. I believe Mr. Webb mentioned it, and this is something that I'm getting a little nervous about. We're close to having our first new construction since 2004. So a 1,500 square foot house, everybody knows what size that is. They could be looking between $7,000 and $8,000 in their taxes because of our special assessments. So we need to get out in front of that and look at that so we can continue to attract new business, new development, new housing, new residents without penalizing them under Prop A and HUDley.
Thank you very much. I started with you, right? So the next question, we're going to start with Ms. Sullivan. How do you feel about a non-discrimination ordinance that will include gender identity and sexual orientation?
Oh, wonderful. I have been active as an ally in the LGBTQIA community for my entire adult life, actually. Some of my initial first volunteer work was with the AIDS quilt and the AIDS walk in Royal Oak when I was still in high school, actually. I don't know if that's necessarily something that addresses our city, but if it were something that our city was questioning doing, I would wholeheartedly stand behind that. There should be no discrimination against anyone for their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their right to marry who they want to marry. And that's important because we have, the right to equality in marriage started with some residents here in Hazel Park. So I think that does kind of hit near close to home.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webb?
I don't think we should have any kind of discrimination of any kind. And I grew up in a very diverse area in southwest Detroit. Went to a school that was pretty much desegregated all the way across the board. We had every kind of race, gender, if you want to call it, and type of lifestyles back then. And that was in the 80s. And I just feel that we should be able to provide a nice, comprehensive ordinance that would actually benefit everyone in our community.
Thank you very much. Ms. Aubrey?
I was raised to believe that discrimination against anybody is wrong. That is family values. So if, and I'm a 100% supporter of the LGBTQAI community. So if our residents wanted an anti-discrimination ordinance passed in the city, I would be more than happy to introduce that and support that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Claude?
Yes, I also would favor the city having an anti-discrimination ordinances. I think it's wrong. Discrimination for any reason is wrong. I would support 100% any legislation or any charter amendments that would come down from the city to stop that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gorsline?
I would think we'd already have that ordinance in place. Don't the rights go back quite a few years? But again, yes, absolutely. I think there's no place in government for discrimination of any kind.
Thank you very much. Ms. Holland?
I love living in this community. I am surrounded by an amazing tapestry of individuals that it's like was said, we don't have one on the books, and I'm not aware of a resident initiative to bring one. Should there be a resident initiative to bring this forward? Do we feel we need that? Absolutely, I would support it. But again, my community, my immediate neighborhood, we are wonderful. We support each other, we love each other, and we embrace our differences.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lacuro?
Yeah, if there was a ordinance brought before us, I would definitely look at it. The details are always what makes the difference. But there should not be any discrimination. I'm not aware of any discrimination in the hiring practices here in the city of Hazel Park. It's a very diverse community, and we need to continue the progress on the diversity.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to start with Mr. Webb. The police and EMTs have been to the next door house to mine 6 times in 1 month because of the drug overdose. They also sell drugs. What will you do to combat the drug issue in the city?
Read the question again.
The police and EMTs have been to the house next door to mine 6 times in 1 month because of a drug overdose. They also sell drugs. What will you do to combat the drug issue in the city?
Well, currently, we are trying to identify a lot of these homes, and that's the biggest challenge. Once we get them identified, we turn them over either to the NET team of Oakland County, which we are part of, and we have an officer on that team. And we also have our own staff and police officers here, detectives that actually go out and start looking at some of these sites to see what kind of traffic's going on. And if we can get people out there, if we get the neighbors to say something, we can actually get them on a nuisance issue. And go in and do it, every once in a while, maybe go by and do a personal safety check and see if we can actually help shake the tree and keep them from acting that way on their street. I'd like to know what street this is, if whoever wrote this question down.
Okay.
And an address afterwards, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Aubrey?
This is not my expertise. So the first thing I would do would bring together the experts in this field, people from our police department, fire department, the county level, as well as social services, and identify maybe if we can get this individual into some type of program, and look at the problem, not just for your neighbor, but for this problem as a whole, which is turning into a huge epidemic in this county and especially the state as well with drug overdoses. So definitely bring together key stakeholders and try to identify a local plan that we can do to address this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clatu.
Could you repeat the question?
Of course. It was the drug question. The police and EMTs have been to the house next door to mine 6 times in 1 month because of drug overdose. They also sell drugs. What will you do to combat the drug issue in the city?
I think once we get the problem with unlicensed rentals taken care of, I think you're going to find that most of these type of houses are rental properties. They're more than likely unlicensed rentals. I think once we resolve that problem, get more licensed landlords in, which will bring in maybe some better tenants into the city, I think that problem will resolve a lot of itself.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gorsline?
I almost thought the question was from one of my neighbors. Yeah, I would say that once we get a handle on these homes that are rented out to these people that have no accountability to anybody, the problem will, if not go away, will certainly drastically decrease. And I think that is why the problem continues, is because who owns this house? Who are these people? Where, these kinds of things. And I think a little better handle on who owns a house, landlord responsibility, I think the problem will take care of itself.
Thank you very much. Ms. Holland?
If I ask for a show of hands in this audience on who hasn't been touched by the opioid epidemic, I doubt any hands would go up. It's a national epidemic, and it's hitting us hard here because the source is right at 8 in John R., 7 in John R. And I have too many neighbors there that are struggling with adult children. And in one case, it took the intervention of our narcotics officer with the Oakland County Net Team to make an arrest and to get him in jail and then into a program. And we're hoping that it sticks. We're hoping that it works, but we're not caught up to it. But I would also like to, you catch me afterwards. I've got that detective's number programmed in my cell phone, and we'll send him your information or that address. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lacroix?
The drug overdose and the opioid epidemic is a terrible issue. We need, though, the police do rely on the residents. We need the residents to be the eyes and ears. We need to have people call. Almost without fail, I would say 90% of the people, you knock on their door and you talk to them and they're like, we got a problem over here, but I don't want to call anybody. I don't want to call the code enforcement. I don't want to call police. We really need people to step up, and we can't afford a police officer on every corner or every street. It needs to be addressed that way as well. And it's, as far as the drugs for sales, we need, we do have people looking at it, and sometimes we bring all the departments of the city to bear on a property like this. So it may be happening, but we have to follow the law, and we have to do it properly. And things often are happening, but nobody thinks they're happening.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sullivan?
This is definitively an issue that hits close to home. I lost a very good friend of mine in April to a heroin overdose. He was an adult who battled and was a functional heroin addict for his entire adult life. One of the ways that I have committed to fighting that epidemic is to get involved with his parents' organization that came out of the loss of their son, the Brian Miller Full Moon Foundation, which does fundraising and helps support initiatives and progressive programs like Hope Not Handcuffs, which is developed here in Ferndale and led by Officer Baron Brown in Ferndale. It's been a very successful initiative in other cities as well. What it does is it offers the ability for somebody who is fighting the addiction to come in and not face jail time, and to be able to seek counseling and seek actual assistance instead of punishment. Addiction is a disease. We don't punish people with cancer, so we need to find different ways to address the heroin and opioid addiction issues.
Thank you very much. The next question, we're going to start with Ms. Aubrey. Some of you promise 100% transparency. Are you aware there are things you cannot be 100% transparent with?
I am very aware that there's obviously issues you can't be transparent with. There's always attorney-client privilege, certain deals that maybe haven't gone public yet. You don't want to jeopardize certain agreements. That's an obvious, it's a given, and that's completely fine. That's legal. I believe that there's other ways you can be transparent. I don't believe we are very transparent in the city. If you look at a city council agenda, simply looking at the agenda, it's incredibly vague. You don't understand what your elected officials are voting on. So if you want to speak during public comment about what they're about to vote on, you don't know what to tell them. We also could use some major upgrades to our website. Pretty much every other city in the county and the state, they all publish their agendas, their minutes, contact information, all on the website. These are very basic things that we can do to make sure that residents are armed with the information they need to contact their elected officials and voice their opinion.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gladue?
Thank you. I agree with Amy on the issue with the website. I think the website can be upgraded to include all the city council meetings and whatever is voted on. As far as things in the city that can be discussed, yes, there's contract negotiations, there's personnel issues, there's real estate, things in the works that they can't discuss. That's fine. Those should not be discussed. As far as transparency, amongst the other stuff, I think the city needs to be a little more forthright with it, especially as I mentioned again with the city council meetings, minutes, and have a better information track, so to say, with the citizens to really get out there what they're talking about and what they're voting on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gorslein?
Well, one of the things I wouldn't say so much transparency. I would say just telling the voters what it is exactly that you're planning to do. I know council passed a budget, and then several weeks later was holding hearings on the streetlight tax, which was already included in that budget. That was where some of the money was going to come from. It would seem like it should have been the other way around. They should have had the street light hearing tax for public input before they went to the budget. But and so I don't. Some of the transparency issues I think are ones that the voters would say being upfront with them, because again I think that the transparency issue is there's some legal issues that you can't discuss personnel issues in front of in a public forum and those kinds of things. But I think as far as transparency, I think most of the voting public would say it's honesty more than anything else.
Thank you very much. Ms. Holland?
Thank you. One of the first things I learned when I was appointed back in January, I'd come home from a meeting and my husband say, "How'd it go?" Can't talk about it. Personnel issues, pending litigation, real estate transactions, there's a whole list of things that can't be discussed. However, things that are going on in the community, I have tried to be as open and honest with folks as I can without betraying any confidences or those list of things we're not allowed to talk about. I've been a bit hamstrung. I had to ask the city to redo my business cards issued. The first ones that came out had the city's clerk's number and fax number on it and no contact information for me. So I had to create an email address and a cell phone number, provide that. So I try and be as open and honest with folks as I can. And I agree on the council agendas. I share everyone's frustration. There are times we get our packets on Friday, and when we come to the meeting on Tuesday, there's different information inside it or it's been updated. So it needs to be consistent and fair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lacuro?
Yes, it's one of the things you learn in the class. You won the election. Now what? There's certain things you can't discuss. There's certain things that are not that are confidential. But when I look at when people claim about the transparency and the website, these again fall prey to the budget process. I don't know how many years, if you've watched the city council meeting recordings, we continually getting people can't hear it, and we've had people repair these things over and over, and you spend money on this. The website is one of those things that would need to be developed as well. I'm all for the electronic media and having things more. But I would say budget-wise and fiscally, our books are clean and clear. When we have Plant Moran doing our audit, our books are clean, clear. There's no need for more transparency, and we just need more funds.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sullivan.
Definitely one of the issues I hear from residents and one of the issues that I feel is important is transparency. When I speak about transparency, I'm talking about access to factual information that lets you be an educated voter as well as an educated participant in your city. We need updated calendars online. We need updated agendas. We've this year have started posting the city council meetings on YouTube. During my last campaign, we spoke over and over about introducing an email newsletter, which the city has since implemented. It's fairly low cost, but also we need to address ways to get this information to people that might not have access to the internet. We have a lot of residents here. More than just posting the agenda on the door of the city, we need to find creative ways to bring that information to the residents that maybe don't have access to the internet.
Thank you very much, Mr. Webb.
Thank you. I think that we've come a long way in the last year and a half or two, considering we didn't have much of a web page a couple of years ago. And our web page has actually come to a point where we can actually start videoing our meetings and putting it up there for people to see. As far as the agendas go, maybe we need to be a little more descriptive of what the subjects are. But there is we can't print every page of what we're discussing up here sometimes and set them out here for everybody to have. It's just too cumbersome. But we can post them on our webpage now. It's a lot more, like I say, user-friendly, and we can actually look up things in our community. Even I didn't even know I could look up as far as tax records and other issues on there as well, that we can get to. It can be a little, if you call transparency an issue, as far as trying to find information. In the past, yeah, it might have been a little cumbersome, but you could get it. It just took a little more time. If you wanted it at your fingertips, no. Government always moves slow in that process, and we're finally starting to catch up a little bit here.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to combine two questions again, and I would ask to give a minute and a half to each candidate. So first question is, how will you encourage more voter involvement in local government? And the second one, what are some of the positive and negatives of your campaigning? And we're going to start with Mr. Gledu.
Could you repeat the question there, please?
How will you encourage more voter involvement in local government? What are some of the positives and the negatives as you are out campaigning?
Well, I think increasing voter turnout is simply educating the voters. Let it be known that it's an honor or it's a privilege to have that vote and get out and vote. Some of the positives and negatives while walking and knocking on some doors here recently, for the most part, I'm hearing nothing but positives from the residents. They love what's going on with the Mabel Gray, the Sellermans, the Joe Bar. They love what they're hearing is coming into the city. They thought the Ashley Capital development at 10 and DeQuinder was a terrific score for the city and the amount of jobs it's going to bring in. The biggest complaint, biggest negative I've heard, and I've said it tonight, is the blight and the code enforcement. I've had a couple people talk to that they've been looking at some of the same houses in dilapidated shape, boarded up, not necessarily boarded up, but abandoned, neglected for years, and they can't understand why it is taking so long for the city to act, even though I know in a lot of cases the city is acting. It's just a very time-consuming process. That's really the biggest negative I've heard out there, is the blight and the code enforcement issue.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gorslein?
I think one of the ways we get voters more interested in what's going on is to make the voters feel like they're included, how they feel, what they feel. There's a real disconnect. Several of the people that I talked to didn't feel like any of the things that they vote for were the same things that city council voted for. And so I think that's one of the big reasons a lot of people just have given up voting, is they don't feel that there is no direct correlation between a vote and a person in office. It seems like the person gets in office and then they forget about the reason that they went in. The reason they went in was to represent the people that put them in there, and suddenly they get caught up in the process of different other issues, and a lot of voters feel removed from that. Again, a lot of the people that I talked to, that I heard that had issues, were people saying they have houses that have 4 or 5 cars parked on the street and they can't even find a place to park. I mean, it's just more of it's just being courteous to the person that lives next door to you more than anything else. But I found that to be one of the largest gripes of people that I ran into.
Thank you very much. Ms. Holland?
Voters aren't engaged. They're discouraged lately, and I don't know how you get folks involved, but I look at what Mayor Hartwell is doing in Madison Heights, and having students come in, and student council and students come in and get to tour City Hall and be engaged and get excited about politics. I don't know that we're really teaching how it works and how important this most local level of government is, and it truly affects each of you in every decision that's made. It's very important that you get out and vote, and traditionally, we've had a very low turnout for huge issues. Positives and negatives of campaigning. I guess the negative would be the poor abuse my signs are taking right now. I'm finding them deceased all over the sides of the road in the city. Positives would be I haven't had any doors slammed in my face. People have been engaged. Even during the Lions game last Sunday, there were several folks that said, hey, don't move, just stand here and watch the game. And then when the play was over, they wanted to hear what I had to say. So it's been exciting talking to folks. There's a new energy. They're excited. They're happy about a lot of the things they're going. Some little complaints here and there, but overall, they just feel really good about the direction Hazel Park has gone and how far we've gone, what we've gone through to get here. So it's been really positive campaigning.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lacura?
Encouraging people to vote has always been something we've always done. I don't understand why people don't take more responsibility, more pride in the community and get out there. Hazel Park has historically had low voter turnout. I would be very open to any process, but it sounds very good to get the kids more involved. I know they have at the junior high, they did a mock election for the president and stuff like that, but it's funny how negatives out there sometimes can be a negative and a positive at the same time. I've run into people who think, and I'm of the opinion that it's great to have a restaurant like Mabel Gray in here, but I've had people who think it's a negative, and why do you have a restaurant in Hazel Park that you have to wait for 2 months to get a reservation? It's funny how sometimes things can be a negative and a positive, but universally, one of the biggest complaints around the city is cars always running stop signs. You know, it's one end of the town to the other. It's a universal complaint. I see it on my street. I live 4 houses from the stop sign. You drive down a street and there's no stop sign on your side, and people blow right through their stop sign. We do offer a speed trailer to be put in the neighborhoods to get people to be aware of what they're doing. But that's been a universal negative, speeding or not running the stop signs.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sullivan?
Um, Taking a note from our representative who's present, being accessible to your constituents. Robert has hosted coffee hours. Oftentimes, people find it easier to speak with somebody one-on-one rather than being intimidated by coming to a city council meeting, or maybe the hours are inconvenient with our blue-collar work schedule. So being accessible, I think that encourages people to feel empowered in their community, and that oftentimes will raise your voter turnout as well. Amy and I, when we ran last campaign, there were significantly higher numbers at the polls, and I think it was because for the first time in a long time, there had been people that were also running. People had more of a choice, and I think that got people excited. If you are excited about your community, this comes from my background in outreach and volunteerism. If you are excited in something in your community, oftentimes that excitement spreads and people see value in what you're doing, and then they also see value in that in their portion of their life. During campaigning, the positive and negatives, the positives have been the wonderful reception that we have received in the city. Meeting my neighbors, learning their stories, meeting their kids, their pets, chatting about our weekends, and just the support that they've had and the ideas that they've given me, and I can learn from them and take that forward with me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webb?
Yes, thank you. I talk to many people every day. A lot of people come by my shop, they make complaints, and I try to help them out where I can. And sometimes I explain to them that there's issues that can't always resolve, but we can take a better look at trying to resolve the whole issue for all, not just for one individual. We have to represent 17,000 residents up here, and we have to make decisions based upon those information that we have that would make a great decision, a good decision here at this table for the future of this community. And sometimes we can focus on small individual needs, and that's what we do. But we also try to get people to come out and vote because they need to realize what they say matters. And we all try to, and that's why I got elected, that's why I ran. I wanted to have a say to be able to tell people, hey, I'll represent you fairly. And that's what I try to do. You can't do much more than that. You got to try to represent people fairly. And if they can get you accessible, which they do find me all the time, many people from one end of town to the other, they call me or they stop by or send me a letter, and I try to answer the questions as much as I can.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Ms. Aubry.
So some of the positives, since I've been out knocking doors, I've knocked hundreds of doors. Talking to our amazing residents, they're excited about our hip happening Hazel Park, about all the new development we have, the new and improved Hazel Park Art Fair, lots of great new opportunities for people. So that's what they really like, and they're very excited to talk about that and ask, what else is there? They'd love to know more, and that also relates to one of the negatives is they don't have access to that information. They want to hear more. They don't know where to find more information. So that also links to improving voter participation by making sure that people have access to that information as well as access to their elected officials. I've talked to countless people that they've never had anybody knock on their door. So they're really excited to see somebody face to face. And I think that's something that if I'm elected in November, I would keep going forward. I would continue to do my best to earn people's votes, earn their confidence, make sure that I'm accessible. I love the idea of doing coffee hours. Probably at least once a month because city council meetings can be incredibly intimidating for residents. But you knock on somebody's door and they will talk your head off. So I definitely want to keep that going.
Thank you very much. This is the end of the portion for the questions. If I didn't read your question, I will encourage you again. Their phone numbers, emails, address are on the Oakland County Clerk website. You can write them directly to them. So now we're going to start the closing portion. Each of you will have 1 minute to say whatever you want to the voters, and we're going to start with Ms. Sullivan.
Okay. I appreciate this opportunity. I have in some way, shape, or form been involved in politics since I was a young child, writing letters to my senator, Sandra Levin, and I got a reply, and I think that was probably the proudest moment as a 9-year-old to know that somebody in government heard what I had to say and cared about it. I hope to be that kind of representation in our city. I've had wonderful opportunities to meet with residents, to hear their concerns, and I hope to be not only a compassionate candidate and hopefully government official, but also an assertive one. I'm always learning, and I hope to continue this learning process with some established council members at my side and do our city proud and keep moving us forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lacuro.
Well, thank you for everybody coming out and to the Democratic Club having us here. What I want to do in the next term is to continue the progress we've been making. It's been a struggle financially, but we've held our own. Thank you to many of the residents. And this election, there is going to be, at the end of it, a number of new faces on the city council. And I would look forward, if you'll honor me with your vote, to assisting everybody learning the ropes, having that memory of the tough times, because we are hopefully seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. Finances hopefully are getting better, and barring anything like a burning bridge or something, some catastrophe like that, we are looking good and we're on a positive path, and I want to continue that progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holland.
Thank you all again. Isn't democracy wonderful? We got 6 people fighting for 4 seats, and we're all being civil. And at the end of the election, there will be 4 council people elected, and there will be 2 that aren't elected. And whoever those 4 are, I'm confident that I can work with any and all of them, and look forward to that. We're kind of in a unique spot right now where we've just cleared some horrible financial challenges, and as we go forward, we need to make decisions that we're mindful of how we got into some of the predicaments that were in our control, make good decisions now going forward, and make decisions that will be best for the entire community. And again, I'd like to thank every one of you for coming out tonight. Folks that are going to watch at home on maybe if they can hear it, watch it on YouTube. Appreciate everyone that's taken the time to tune in and for caring so much about Hazel Park.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerslein.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and this really doesn't have a whole lot of, as I said, working in Homeland Security, you really don't get into the political part. It's all regulatory. It is what it is. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up was, and this was something that Hazel Park City Council, no one in city, I don't know if anybody even know about it. You guys maybe had seen it. It was a place on the locate and Cousins and 10 Mile, a hazmat situation that there was no response. No one has said a word about it, and yet a building contained enough cyanide, water, and hydrochloric acid to have created a deadly cyanide gas situation, which would have killed thousands of people. And it's sad because, as I know with Homeland Security, tornadoes, hurricanes, wildfires, earthquakes, if you don't have a plan in place on what to do when it happens, a lot of people die. And I just wish more planning went into that, and because you could probably ask anybody that lives in it, and it's 1 block away from where I live, what would you do if this happened? Run like heck? You'd be dead. So it's one of those kinds of things that, aside of just dealing with ordinances and trucks on your street, I would have wanted to have seen somebody address.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gladue?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody once again for coming out this evening, and I'd like to thank the Democratic Club for putting this on. Honored to be here. I hope after November 7th I'll be one of the fortunate 4 that are up here serving you. All I can say is I will do my best. I will be honest. I think Those are the two best qualities I have. Also, I'd like to encourage everybody to get out and vote. Please, whether you're voting for me or voting one of the other candidates, please exercise your right and vote. It's important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aubrey.
I, again, want to thank you guys for hosting this forum. It was a great opportunity for everyone for coming out, including my parents. My parents are out there. They're probably the reason I am as interested in local politics as I am. I started off watching city council meetings with my mom. So I hope I can count on your vote on November 7th. I have a lot of passion for this city. I hope to be a fair voice for everybody in this community, to listen to you guys, what's important to you, and make the best decisions possible. I'm also grateful to have the support of several organizations, Mayor Jeffrey Keaton, former Mayor Jan Parisi, the local firefighters union, as well as the Building Trades Council for their endorsements this year as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webb?
I'd like to thank the Southeastern Oakland County Democrats for having this forum, and I'd also like to thank the audience out here for participating in our forum. I just want to say we have I'm not going to talk about myself. I want to say we have a lot of great candidates up here, and I think they all have their unique ability to serve this community. They all have that commitment because they filed the deadline. They got the signatures, went out and talked to people. And that's what it takes to get up here and actually sit here and answer these barrage of questions so you know a little bit more about each one of us. And I think that everybody here is a viable candidate, and I think that it gives everybody the opportunity to pick and choose who they may want. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes our program. I want to thank you again for coming all out, and one more time encourage you to encourage your friends and family members to get out and vote on November 7. You can always pick up your ballot at the city clerk and vote earlier. And one more time, good luck, everyone, and good night. Thank you.
Thank you.